Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the LED Project. I am Wilkie Law, aka Will. Excited to be on the line with two good people that I've had the pleasure of meeting. My co-host, as always, Kyle Krieger. What's going on, Kyle?
Just enjoying life. Rainy Wisconsin, had the day off from landscaping because it's raining. Going to probably have the next two off. So I was glad this is our second Zoom today. I'm feeling really inspired. I feel really good about seeing you all this time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're joined by a mutual friend that we met. I was corrected 2 years ago, coming around the anniversary time. Out at the Mentoring Institute, we have Dr. Rob Wottawa. What's going on, Rob?
I'm here from New York. I'm excited to be with you guys again. When Kyle reached out with the text messages, it was kind of ironic. I was sitting there thinking about you guys. I was looking at some pictures, and then all of a sudden there's a text message from Kyle. I'm going, oh, that's so crazy. It's funny how we all kind of connected in that way.
Yeah, I think it's that time. This is that time of the year, because it's like we were excited when we went back the second year. We were hoping to get to see you guys and link up with you guys again, and it didn't happen. So we just really enjoyed that time, man. I mean, when you really find people that are part of that internal body that you are part of, it's really special. And we thank you for being a part of that with us.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah, and I think for us, Will, I mean, the first year we drove, so we didn't have to rush, but we went in 2017, we went out there and we were both like on a real short time schedule. So I didn't feel like we got to enjoy Albuquerque as much as we did the first time. We didn't even go back to that restaurant. I was so disappointed.
Zacatecas.
Zacatecas, man. We went there too much. For sure.
I highly recommend it. Every time I'm online and I'm watching people from Albuquerque, I'm like, hey, you're going to Albuquerque, you got to go to Zacatecas. Got to get the tacos.
Yeah. And we were just talking about the rest of that crew, Jonathan up there in Akron and all those people. It's so crazy how, you meet people and you just I wish it was easier to stay connected, but we're all so busy. It just –
yeah, life happens, and then, if you're married or you have kids and that's something else that pulls you away, and then you have other extended family members and then you have other friends, it's one of those things that as long as everybody around the table knows that, it's nothing negative. It's just, life happens.
Right.
But
yeah, but we're going to go ahead and get this kicked off and run through these questions and just, again, be comfortable, be you, and just a conversation. So
yeah.
So how about for our audience, just share the story of how and why you became a teacher.
How and why I became a teacher. Well, originally I was a musician, and I was still a musician, and I graduated with an undergraduate in classical guitar. And after graduation, it was now what am I going to do? So I began teaching in a local music store and started gaining up private students. And at one point, I had over 100 students a week that I was seeing. So that means during the summer, I was get up in the morning. I would teach from 10 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, straight through for 5 days. Taught on Saturdays and taught on Sundays. So I had over 100 private students, and I was learning how to repair multiple of other things, taking apart guitars, taking apart amplifiers, taking apart anything you could possibly imagine. And my wife now, she was like, you need to go back to school and you need to get your master's because you love teaching and you love this whole process. And that's where the process was born for me. So then I went and got my master's in education, and 2005 I started teaching in a public school. I started teaching music to fifth and sixth graders in general music and chorus, and then for 3 years, and then I went to the middle school, junior high rather, and I taught 7th and 8th grade band, and then I was tapped on the shoulder to become a leader. So I went into a grant program that I was awarded a grant to get my administrative certifications, and then was in the high school for 4 years as a department chair of art, fax, and music. And now I'm the director of art, E&L, music, and world languages at a school district. So now I'm a full-time administrator, and this is my 4th year.
I'm curious. I'm just curious because you began teaching in 2005, and when you got the tap on the shoulder to move up into admin, is it something that was already burning inside of you that you knew that you wanted to go into it, or was it kind of just on the unction of someone else pushing you to say, hey, look, I see this in you, and you kind of went with it?
It's funny because I do go back to that story quite often. I am still friendly with the person that had said that to me. That person actually was a reader on my dissertation committee. Um, And I think at the time, I wanted nothing to do with leadership because I was so focused on my students, and I loved what they were doing. But taking a step back, there was little things that I always noticed about the program, how we can improve things and what we can do to make it better for our kids, but also make it better for our teachers. And then when I'd share those conversations and those feelings with this particular person, and he had said to me, he goes, look, there's a grant that's out there and you should apply for it. He goes, not everybody, gets it, but, go for it. So I think there was about 15 teachers that applied for this grant. I was interviewed by all of our assistant superintendents and superintendents, and they selected 2 of us. But, even when I was sitting across the table from the deputy superintendent, his question to me was, so if we put you through this program and you have an administrative certification, are you going to be an administrator? And I looked at him and I said, unfortunately, that's a really poor question. I said, because you're asking me to answer a question that I have no knowledge on. I said, if I get into class and I absolutely love the leadership process and want to do it, I can guarantee you, yes, I'll become a leader. But me sitting at this seat right now, I can't make that decision because it requires the knowledge and the time that I would need to speak with my wife and, family. And, that's a big decision in life. And he actually took a step back and kind of looked at me and was like, yeah, that is kind of a silly question.
How long was that grant program?
I think it was 3 years. So we were in a cohort, and we started out about 20, and I think it dwindled down to about like 12 or 15, and then I think it was 3 years, and then the last half of the year the last year was like an internship. So one of the coattails that they talked about was the fact that their internship wasn't just 6 months; it was like a 10-month school year. So during that time, I worked really closely with several administrators and got a lot of different experiences. And one of the things that I had started to learn was that when you become an administrator, it really comes down to the larger classroom. If you're a teacher and you're teaching 30 students, and if you're in high school, you're teaching 30 times 5 because you teach 5 periods a day, your impact is about 125 students, which is great. But as an administrator, if I have 50 teachers that have all of those students, and I teach, and I work well with the teachers and I treat them with respect and with kindness, that is a ripple effect. And now I could be impacting 1,000 students. Which that's the reason why I got into what I'm doing, is because I want to help people, I want to support teachers, but I want to have a positive impact on them to then trickle down to the kids.
Well, and I think the fact that you stood up to that question is really good, because I know I've had questions like that in interviews, and yeah. I think I balked at them. Even my last job interview before I moved back, the guy was like, if we were to offer you this position, would you move?
Right.
And this was after I had reached out to them. I had done all of trying to get in touch with them. And I said to him, I would have to talk it over with my family and make sure that it was the right choice. And it cost me that position. Mm-hmm. He said that I wound up getting a different position at the same school, but he had said, I heard through the grapevine that he didn't feel like I was committed, that I couldn't commit to it right away. And this was, and all of this from the time I contacted him to the time I interviewed with him was 3 days.
Right.
And this was talking about a move, across the country. And I just think, but it's crazy, like you said, to think that they expect you to know what your life is going to look like in 3 years.
That's right. And then you take a step back and you go, well, here's a person that you were with, and it was only 3 days. What kind of relationship do you really have with that person? And this person now is asking you to upheave your entire life for mm-hmm. them. And at this moment now, you're not even bought into the organization. You're not bought into what whatever it is that they're going towards. And then so you take a step back and you go, you know what? I don't want to work for a person like that. So when that question came to me, it was a huge risk, but I also didn't want to be dishonest and say, yes, I definitely want to be an administrator, and then, and then turn around, 3 years from then, and he's like, well, why aren't you getting a job? And that's puts you in a real bad place.
Right. And I asked that question because, I actually went the opposite direction. I was on that admin track. After I got my master's, I became a skills specialist, instructional coach. And that was kind of the trajectory that generally people would follow.
Right.
And I actually went back to the classroom because it wasn't fulfilling to me to work. And I got the concept of the bigger classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Every level is just, your students change, your classrooms get larger, the impact gets greater. But for me, I found it extremely frustrating. A lot of the bureaucracy, a lot of the red tape, that to me stole my drive to truly just educate. Just give me some kids to teach.
Right.
Let me work with some people without your pretexts of what should come out of it, but what genuinely the normal growth model should take place. And I just say I got frustrated, and I'll be honest with you, this year has been one of my most challenging years teaching as an educator.
Okay.
But also I already feel it being one of my greatest rewards going back now. It's like getting a do-over in a sense.
Yeah. No, it's now that you say that, it's I think my personal shift has changed recently. This is 4 years now as being solely an administrator, and I still focus my support on my teachers, and I want to be that guiding hand and help them. But yeah, the frustration of the red tape and the people above me that are saying no, or the people that are above them saying, we got to save money and we got to do this, and we got to do that. I think it's also what I look at now is how can I best navigate those troubled waters so our teachers and impact our students can get the best education they possibly can. And you're right, there are so many things that are frustrating to go through, but I think if you take the time to think through and bring the people in to have them understand the challenges that we face, then we can move forward with a positive solution, or as best solution we can with the moment that we have. Because unfortunately, a lot of administrators just do what's easy, and or they just say no and they call it a day, and they're not thinking about the tiered levels of impact. I feel like there's some people I work with that have that kind of mindset of let's take a step back and let's think about the kids. If we make this decision right now, how does that trickle down to the kids? And then it's okay, well, are we going to do that or are we not going to do that? And I think a lot of people just say, well, this is what I want and this is what I think is best because I'm the leader. That's not what it's about. And that's not what you should be doing. You should be thinking, again, going back to the teachers and back to the kids. But it's more work that way. And I feel like when I do that work and I do it well, it's really rewarding because you see the kids shine and you see the teachers shine.
Right. Which is key. That's what and I think that's still, even in my mind as a teacher leader, that's still my drive, is to make the other teachers on my team that much better. It's like I just get to know them so well and just drop little nuggets, and not in a true sense of coaching where I'm going to come in, I'm going to observe you. I'm just going to listen to you talk to me about what you're struggling with and say, hey, look, have you thought about this? Have you implemented this? I tried this the other day with my group that's similar to yours and it worked. And to me, I'm finding the reward of that is wonderful, but also you're still not looked at as a normal teacher, so to speak.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like you're still viewed as one of them, so to speak.
Right.
And it's like trying to escape that and fully immerse myself. It's difficult sometimes to, that's one of the biggest challenges with being a true teacher leader. Because when I think about my favorite teachers growing up, none of them ever became administrators. They retired from the classroom. I think there has to be space made for those teachers who are just classroom teachers who want to just teach. And you shouldn't have to move into, be forced to move into another position, so to speak, to say, oh, this is the natural trajectory that you should go on, things like that. So,
but doesn't New York have some program where you have to have a master's to teach or some type of other certification?
So the way it works is as an 18-year-old student, you go to college, you get your undergraduate in education. You can get your teaching job, just like everybody else at age 22, 23 years old, you start teaching. The state requires that within the first 5 years, you have to get a master's degree. You don't get a master's degree, you can actually submit like a postponement, but generally you have to get the master's within 5 years. And now if you want to go forward in administration, most programs here require minimum of 5 years of teaching experience. So you have to have that as well, and then move forward if you choose to. But I agree with you, Wilkie. It's like there's people out there that are just awesome teachers, and they just need to be with kids. And I have a bunch of awesome, amazing teachers that I work with now, and you just watch them grow, and you watch them enjoy working with kids and doing these different things. I have a particular teacher in mind right now that is a bands teacher by nature, and last year decided to take the life skills students and teach them general music in the classroom, and had the students do a concert for their parents and the community within the classroom, and to see the joy on her particular face and the joy on the children's faces, that's what it's about, and that's the type of person that's just good for kids. And she's been, probably been teaching for 30 plus years, and she should just keep doing it,
Mm-hmm. So since we're talking about favorite teachers, who is your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher. That's definitely a difficult question. I feel like in looking back, I think probably my fourth grade teacher, Mr. Anderson. He probably was the nicest teacher I had. I think he taught us outside of the box. He had us play chess every week. So I learned how to play chess by being in his class. But most of my teachers, I shouldn't say most, a lot of the teachers, it didn't really have a positive impact on me, but he had a positive impact. And then there's one other high school teacher that I truly enjoyed working with, which was my math teacher. But it's funny when you take a step back as a teacher and you start thinking about which teachers had a positive impact on you. And right away we go to our K through 12 teachers, and we never really talk about our university professors or the people that we work with. And if I were to extend that to think about who's the best teacher of my life, I probably would have to say, it's been the people I've recently worked with, who you forged positive relationships. They're part of your life. You invite them over for dinner and they want to get together, and you meet them at a diner. Those are the teachers. They're lifelong teachers, and I'm still working with them and they're still teaching me. Mm-hmm. I think that those are powerful relationships. The relationships that you had as a high school student or an elementary student, those relationships are unfortunately long gone, with the exception of maybe a few that people still have, connect with their teachers on Facebook or something like that,
Man, I love what you just said, that teachers are still teaching me. And I mean, from an educator to an educator like that, I feel that same way, that every day you get an opportunity. I told a group of kids the other day, I said, I found the fountain of youth when I started teaching, because year after year, I'm staying relevant with the students that I'm teaching. And you get so many cycles of generational teachers that you get to glean from. So it's like, I stay current, I refocus. I stay current, I refocus. And it's like that constant sharpening that happens that keeps you on point. And I think you're right. When we look at those teachers, we do typically talk about our K-12. Our mind instantly goes there. But you're right. My mentor, for instance, when I first started teaching, I still live by the things that she introduced to me, as my mentor. Right. I still consider her to be one of the best teachers I've ever witnessed with my own two eyes, right, who can masterfully navigate a math classroom with her eyes closed. Right. And to develop those type of relationships with students, like you say, they're still teaching us. And I love that. That's powerful. I love that, man. That got me excited. I ramble when I get excited, so just bear with me for that.
That's okay. I think we all ramble when we get excited.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about the value of a great teacher. We've kind of talked about a lot of the aspects of teaching and the why and the how. But what, in your eyes, what's the value of a great teacher?
Value of a great teacher. It's funny, I recently started a blog. I just posted my third blog post, and I'm trying to use the alphabet as my guide. So, I have A is for authority, and B is for boring, and C is for courageous. So I try, when you ask this question about, basically what does a teacher look like? Is that what you're asking?
Well, what is the value of that
What's the
teacher?
value of the value? Yeah, I think you can't, my personal thing, you can't place value on the knowledge that a teacher possesses than the knowledge that the teacher can share. It's invaluable, but it's also dependent upon that person. There are some teachers that have the ability to, forge positive relationships with kids, and do different things in the classroom that may not be like they're the knower of all. And what I'm speaking about right now is my youngest daughter just started the fourth grade, and her classroom teacher did open house, and she goes, I'm doing something new this year, and I have no idea if it's going to work. And you can see that there's no desks in the classroom, and all the children have wheelie chairs, and they are able to move around the room as efficiently as they can, so they can get in groups and solve problems. And if they wheel when they're not supposed to wheel, they get grounded and they get into a chair without wheels. And to be in this room and see the inspiration, and have my daughter coming home, and this teacher's doing a flipped classroom for math only. So now as a parent, we don't have to go through the troubles of doing math homework with our daughter with the new Common Core or the next generation standards. So there's a lot of ingenious, and you talk about value of a teacher. So in this particular example, the value that this teacher is giving us is quality time at home. We're not arguing with our daughter about math homework. We're not arguing with, well, this is Common Core math. That's not how we did it. And then we're teaching her how we did it. And she's like, that's not how we did it in school today. And that's a waste of time. We a couple of years ago, we used to say, oh, we're having a math meltdown. So this teacher, it's that value, it's indescribable, because now I can sit on the couch with my daughter, open up the laptop, watch the video with her for math, and not worry about, oh my goodness, how am I going to teach this to her, because she's getting the lesson here on the video and then going to school and doing her homework. And then all the problem solving that she's doing with the different chairs and moving around, and she's taking on project-based learning this year as well. So there's a lot of different things that are really exciting that's going on in her life. So then you place, what's the value of that teacher? Well, I guess the value of that teacher is we'll have to see in 20 years. We'll see what lifelong impact she has had on my daughter. And I think that goes a long way for all of us. You look at the teachers, and you may have a moment with a teacher, and they say one sentence to you, and that one sentence sticks with you for the rest of your life. Well, the value of that teacher is going to be tremendous for you personally. But on the flip side, you may have a teacher that says something to you that's negative, or you spent a whole year in a classroom with that teacher, or let's say that teacher looped and you spent 3 years with that teacher, and they were just a teacher. Their value and their value on you could be next to nothing, even though you spent 3 years of your life with them. So I think it's very subjective.
Man. Wow. I don't think we've heard an answer like that. But I will say that it made sense when you described it, because even I know for me, I go through and have conversations with my students, and I state to them the impact that I want to have in their life. I let them know up front. I emailed all my parents. Yes, I feel like I'm a good math teacher, but above that, I want to teach your student how to become a global citizen. I want to teach your child how to progressively work in networks of different varieties. So I catered my classroom on just that. You know what I mean? On just that premise. And I think that when you talk about value, to me, it's like, I tell my kids, I want to see you graduate high school. That's my end game. I know that I've done something when you go on and you say, hey, Mr. Law, I'm going into the Marine Corps, or I'm going to, I just got a 4-year scholarship, or hey, I didn't get a scholarship, but I'm going to junior college because I'm going to go for 2 years, or hey, I just took this job offshore. I know that something that I've done has created in you a purpose to be that type of citizen and to use skills that you've learned through me. And I think that a lot of education is so short-term we're such a standardized, I need to see year to year how it looks, where every tree, if I planted a bunch of trees in my backyard, year to year, they're not going to grow at the same rate, even if they're in the same soil, or if they're, getting the same amount of water. They're still going to grow at various rates. They're still going to bloom around the same time, but in different seasons. So I think that when we get that as educators to realize that the end game is that lifelong impact, that's when we'll know if what we're doing in education, it really works.
Right.
When your students become parents and they're transferring that feeling of value of education to their kids because of something that Dr. Wottawa said to a teacher who said to you in the classroom, and now, guess what? Generations from now, they're going to remember those words and the principle. And I think that's the end game for education in my eyes.
Yeah, you talked about transfer. That's I went to a workshop recently about designing curriculum with the end in mind type of thing. And the concept is if you're teaching children and you're teaching them well enough so they can transfer that knowledge to something else, that's the goal that we want. So what you're talking about too is, I think high school teachers, because I've lived it, have the opportunity to kind of see that transfer relatively quickly. You have a student that's a ninth grader. They go through a couple years. You see them in the hallways. You check up on them. For me, I looped with my kids, so I actually saw them every single day for 4 years. And you have those conversations. Oh, I'm thinking about. My dad wants me to be a physicist, and he's forcing me to go to school for this. But I really want to go to school for music. And then you're having that conversation, and then because I had a relationship with the parents, I could call the parents up and say, what are you doing? This is crazy for your kid. It's crazy for us to even say to children, okay, you're 16 or 17. Now you have to decide what you want to be for the rest of your life. But that moment right then and there, that impact, I saw the impact with that child. That child went home, spoke to the parents. They discussed it. The parent called me and I said, look, what's best for this child? And then they down the road decided that he would go to a local college, earn his credits locally to save some money, and buy a year to figure out where he would go in his next journey. So I saw that impact immediately. However, as an elementary school teacher, you teach kindergarten, you're setting those foundations, and that's in my opinion, that's the most important time to get a kid. But you set those foundations. I don't know if a kindergarten teacher really gets to see that outcome, that transfer at the end of the day. Maybe maybe that kindergartner goes through the school in fifth grade, then they go to middle school. So maybe they see some of the steps of transfer, but fifth graders are still pretty young. They're not kind of thinking the way that we're thinking. So to see that lifelong transfer is I think super valuable. And I think that's what teachers are, love to see. I'm sure like you had mentioned, you have students. I have students that email me, or they have, now that they're long gone, they text me, and, and we go out to lunch and we connect, and they talk about, the impact that you had on me, and the little things, wow, the little things that make a big difference.
I had a moment. I shared it on Instagram with I was in Sam's Club with my wife, and I see this young lady walking toward me, and I instantly connect. I was like, I know her from somewhere, and I was like, excuse me, did you go to Stella? And the look on her face was like almost like as if she saw a celebrity. Like she wanted to cry, and I almost started crying. And it was a kid that I taught when she was in 6th grade, who's now about to graduate. And she said to me, I am where I am right now because of you. She's graduating in the top 10% of her class. And to hear someone say that that's the impact, that's my $1 million moment. It's like, that is what we teach for. Mm-hmm. That's the true end game. I am because of you. And just to know that I had the privilege to shape the next generation that's going to go on now to do big and better things than I could even imagine. That to me is like the ultimate rush. Like I don't see how, we all know the 9-to-5 teachers that, they're going to teach while they're there and their heart's in it, but they're not really, it's just a check or just something.
It's a job.
It's just a job. And it's like, to me, it's so much more. So much more.
Right.
So.
Absolutely.
All right. So Kyle, you want to jump in here?
Yeah. So you were
Kyle changed his background.
I'm sitting on a couch and there's just not like I'm in like the one spot in my house where the internet actually really works. There's not like a good spot to sit, so now I'm sitting back on the couch rather than sitting forward on it. But you were talking a little bit about your blog, and I love it because it's so similar to what Will does. Because there's gosh, what is it? What are they called that you love so much, Will, that you always use?
Acronyms.
Acronyms. There you go. But this is not quite an acronym, but it's been cool to read your first 3 blog posts. Do you want to kind of just talk about, you don't have to give the whole thing, but why you say A is for authority, B is for boring, and C is for courageous?
Yeah. A is for authority. It's funny. I wrote, in that particular blog post, I wrote about a mentor student of mine. She was a piano student of mine that for many, many years, she was a classroom teacher for 40 years. She passed away 2 years ago at the age of 92. And I was still teaching her piano and computer music. And when I got my first job, she said, "Rob, just be fair, friendly, and firm." And, you hear the first year, don't smile till December, or don't let the kids know that you're having fun, or whatever it may be, don't smile at all. And she had said to me, "Look, you're going to go in there, you're going to make mistakes, but you're going to go in there, you're going to have fun. As long as you're fair, firm, and friendly, you'll be fine." So for me, the authority piece was being the person that's in the room, being self-aware and self-control of yourself, because if you don't have authority of yourself, sometimes the kids will upset you and your reaction to them could have a negative impact on them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the authority, but also the student should also have authority of their learning. So that's kind of where that come from. And B for boring, I think that was just simply as don't be a boring teacher. Engage your students, get them out of the chairs, get them to do something, get them to explore and experiment and make the mistakes so they can foster that growth mindset. And the last one I actually just wrote it this morning, courageous, the idea of, we all need courageous people in our lives, and, to take risks is so tremendous in learning. And if we don't make those mistakes and take those risks, we're not going to learn. And teachers need to be courageous to develop lessons that are engaging for kids, but kids also are taking that journey with you. So they're taking a risk and they're being courageous by, like listening to you and saying, "You know what, I am going to go on this journey with you." And that takes courage for a kid. And I think teachers don't always quite understand that they may think, well, I'm the adult in the front of the room, so you're going to listen to what I have to say. But in the psyche of a child they're going, okay, there's this person in front of the room, they're an adult, I know I'm supposed to respect them, but I want to believe in them and I want to go on this journey with them. And I think that takes a lot of courage. And I think kids should be given credit for that. But I also think teachers coming into the building, like I share with you about my daughter's teacher, they take risks and they take courageous activities in getting rid of desks or flipped classrooms or whatever it may be. And now they're doing something courageous, but the kids have to go, okay, we're going on with this ride. How is this going to go? So that's kind of what I've been writing about.
I really like the courageous piece, because I think you have to, like you said, have the aspect of making mistakes okay. And I think that's something that's lacking in education right now, is the attitude towards mistakes. Like, we think that, mistakes are wrong, that mistakes need to be corrected and those things. But I mean, we know that we learn best through mistakes. And when you're mentoring teachers, Rob, do you feel like it's hard for teachers to really step out and be courageous? Because I can't imagine that kids are really going to be courageous for a teacher that's not really stepping out and modeling that.
I think, what I see is a lot of times is teachers are generally, unfortunately, afraid of the administrators, and they're afraid that an administrator is going to come in the room and see something, and then it's going to be bad news. For me as a person, I try to forge positive relationships with my teachers, so they know that when I'm in that room with them, I'm there to support them and mentor them and help them rather than judge them. It's a challenge. Like you had said, we as teachers, we always think of it in rights and wrongs many times. If you watch really good teachers, when a child makes a mistake, you go, okay, I see your thinking there. Can you tell me why you thought that, and then how you got there, and then let the child kind of work through that mistake to eventually get to the place where they're making the solution. But it takes a really good teacher to be able to take a step back and go, I'm going to let this child struggle, and struggling is good. That friction, we need that friction. And then take that and add another layer on it. So now you're that teacher and you have an administrator standing in the room. Are you going to just say, oh, no, that's not right, and fix it because now I want to make sure that the administrator knows that I'm teaching the correct content? Or is that teacher going to know that I have a supportive administrator that knows that they're watching to see that I'm teaching for transfer and that this child's going to work through it, and I have the patience to sit there and guide them through their learning? I struggle with that, seeing how other administrators operate, and then how they react to whatever they may see in a classroom. And I think that's a big challenge that a lot of teachers are facing.
But I think you're right on point, because we're teaching a generation of students who are slowly being taught that failure is final. They think there's a finite thing that when I fail, oh, that's it, I failed. And I encourage failure. I told them I create my lessons for you to fail, but notice that I'm right here with you while you're failing, so that when you fall, you're never going to be out, because I'm going to be right here to help pick you up. And I think, I had a discussion. I was doing a PD on Friday with a group of teachers, and they were having the same complaint about the administrators coming in and expecting them to do this and expecting the kids to be performing at this level on every assessment. And I said, well, your response is simply when they say, well, your kids are not passing. I say, then all you have to do is say one word, yet. Well, you need to get the scores are not where they should be, yet. Because I think we forget that this educational journey it's not even a marathon. It's more like a steeplechase. Across country, it's going to have its pitfalls. It's going to have its moments where the kids are going to run fast. It's going to have its moments where kids are going to have to take a breath and breathe and walk. Maybe even sit down and break. And as an educator, we have to know when to give students those opportunities. And I think that when you get administrators that understand, that truly have that growth mindset, then that becomes part of the mindset of the campus and of districts, but I don't think we know enough about that growth mindset with our students. I know I teach the lesson. We talk about growth. I show them the brain research videos. I need you to understand what's going on inside of your noggin. It's not just the thoughts that you have. There's a lot going into why you remember a song that you hear on the radio, and by the second day, you know it word for word. One thing about the impact that you feel when you get that. So that saying, if you understand that, then we can get you to understand how you can incorporate that to get your math, to get your reading, to get your science, so it's the same skill set. And I think that, like you say, teachers have to be courageous enough to step back and say, let me facilitate your failure. Let me be here, facilitate your learning, because the research says when you fail, it actually strengthens your brain. It gives your brain something to look for. Your brain wants to problem solve. It wants to work through things. And if you're always getting things right, I challenge kids, if something's too easy for you, move to the next level. I'm not going to sit here playing Mario Brothers and I'm going to stay on the first level. No, I'm going to need something that's going to challenge me, because after a while, you can't get any more mushrooms or knock any more, coins up. You're done. You got to go to the next level. And our kids are not being taught to push and move themselves to the next level in that way. So, yeah, right. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we would be remiss, Will, if before we wrap this up, you didn't talk to Rob about the AMAC program and see if we can't get a little bit of help from him. I mean, that's your baby, man. We got to talk about it.
I was trying to figure out a way to bring it up.
No, we're just going right into it. We're just going right into
it. Musician to musician, we both talked about the fact that, that's basically one of our first love. That's our first love. And I've been privileged this year to be able to run and sponsor a program called the Music and Arts Collective.
Okay.
At my campus. And so it's a group of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students who are varying in degrees of artistic expression. You know, you have photographers, videographers, artists, hip hop artists, guitar players, singers, music producers. Like, it's just a collective of different people.
Yeah.
The idea behind it is we're teaching them personal development skills and having them create from their artistic expression, whichever genre that is, create a collective work together and individually based on these personal skills, kind of build, these personal development skills. And we had our first meeting. We had 32 kids show up. I believe the numbers are going to drop down because kids thought it was just going to come sit down and, we get to beat on stuff and make beats and all this. And they realized that, no, you actually have to come in and learn how to do this stuff and go through the process. And so, but I think it'll still be a solid core of about 25 kids when it's all said and done. And the kids are going to film it as part of the film festival for our district. So maybe we could get you on a Skype or something during one of our sessions, or have you record a video to kind of talk to them about, the importance, because every month it's a different, like this month is goal setting, seeing the big picture. And so we're working on them being able to see who they are, and being able to focus on, now that I know who I am as an individual, what are the goals that I'm going to set for myself, and kind of get them in that mindset of setting goals and seeing what it feels like to set a goal and actually successfully accomplish it. And so that's, like I said, that's kind of our focus. So each month we change the focus. And so we'll focus on it for a month, create, then next one. So hopefully at the end, we have this nice collage of photographs, artist work, songs, and music that we can put together that I think fun. So
yeah, it sounds
pretty exciting.
It sounds very all-encompassing and almost overwhelming because you have so many different skills for the children there. So you can like my mind right away went to, okay, so you can have these kids have these kids work together, write a song, have the other kids be the videography, have them write a song, have the people advertise for the song, have the people record a music video, have the artists working on the backgrounds and the costumes, and so I'm thinking about all those different roles, but how they all can come together to create one unified project. That's the ultimate goal.
That's exactly what it is.
Exactly how you described it, exactly how I feel every day. And luckily I have two other sponsors, teachers that come in, and also I've already gotten so much community love. We have photographer Paul McGee. He's coming in next week, this week actually, to come and talk with our kids. And so, it'll be awesome for the kids, again, to hear from a different voice.
Right. They
hear from teachers all the time, but to hear from someone else saying, this is what it takes to do this is what it takes to do that. And it just doesn't, like I told them, y'all all want the bag. You got these big Bugatti dreams, but you got Beatle type of work ethic. And the two just don't go together. You got to make your work ethic match your dreams and your goals. But before that, you got to know your goal. You can know what you're working towards. So I'm excited, man. Like I say, we'll keep you posted on it, and I'll send you a list.
Okay.
And you can kind of look at the topics and then just pick one that that speaks near and dear to you. And like I say, we can jump on here and you and I can just have a quick conversation where you can just talk to the kids, or you can just record a video and email it and figure that out from there.
Okay. Oh man, I want to see a video of you switching from classic guitar to rock guitar to all the different types of guitar that you can, just riffing off of it.
Yeah.
That's what man, those kids they'd be like, who's that white dude playing guitar like that?
What would probably be really dope if I was to get on my keyboard and you on the guitar and we just try to create music across the airways like this. I bet that would be kind of dope.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of things where, my school district is taking on a theme. I took on a theme last year, and I wrote a song that goes with that theme. So I went into my studio and I put the guitar tracks down, the bass tracks, the drum tracks, and the vocal tracks down. And I didn't get a chance to video record the process, but I think when kids start to see like the idea of like, yeah, at one point, I was a hard rock fan. I was going to be a rock star. That's what my path was. And then I went to school for classical guitar. Then I went to school to be a music teacher. And now I'm an administrator, but I still play. It's, it's crazy when kids think about what they want to be when they're musicians. They want to be these stars, and then they realize that life happens and it's not that easy. Not all of us can be the football star.
Right. Right. But it's all about planning and looking at the landscape. I think if your goal is to say, I want to accomplish this, I want to be, my nephew, hey, I want to go to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But now he's looking at it and he's saying, I'm in college. They're paying for me to go to college. So I'm going to go ahead and get my business degree, because even if I go to the NFL, I know that's not going to last, and I'm going to have something to fall back into. And I want to own franchises, so let me get my MBA so that when I'm done, I can go do this and do that, even when the NFL's over with. So it's like giving them the option to say that, don't just say, I'm going to play football or I'm going to play basketball. I want to be a rapper. Get yourself educated as to the highest degree that you can. Get all that you can, because, education is something, knowledge, they can't take that away from you.
Right.
The cars can be stripped away, the houses, we see the Mike Tysons and, all the people who earn millions and all of a sudden end up, broke from,
right.
Living off their celebrity, basically. And so I think that our kids need to see that you have to have more depth and meaning to the structure of your life and the planning of your life.
Right.
You can make it big. I mean, hey, we all know that as long as there's stars out there, there's stars to be made. But also in the process, don't be so closed-minded that you don't see the big picture.
Right.
That I still have to be a good person. I still have to know how to learn. I still have to learn how to cooperate in a network and do all these other things. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading a book recently, and the top three, I think the three characteristics that employees look for people is leadership, collaboration, and communication. Those are the three things. So if any job anywhere and you're going to apply, as long as you're kind, you can communicate and you're willing and you can work well with people and you can lead yourself, they'll give you the skills that you need to know to work in that job. And I think it's pretty powerful that, like, when we're working with kids and saying, we're here to teach you music or we're here to teach you math, but in the background, or rather should be a theme throughout, is we want to teach you to be leaders. We want you to do it with people and solve these problems together and communicate. If that theme goes out through the education process and we make it those valuable characteristics, I think that our future would be in a better place.
I think that's a good spot to end. Before we get Rob out of here, we gotta give our little plug.
Yep.
If you're enjoying the podcast, it would mean the world to us if you would, leave a rating, leave a review, subscribe to it, share it, so we can grow. The more ratings we get, the more likely we are to show up on searches. So that's why we're doing that. So, man, Rob, great to reconnect, man. We got to make sure it's not 2 years again before we do this, and hopefully we can find a way to get together in person sometime.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I would love that.
Yeah, man.
That'd be awesome.
And send me that list of all of the themed months, because I'd be thrilled to help you out.
I will make sure I send it to you as soon as we get off of this.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, Will, why don't you leave them with a little something? I always love that part when you're on, that you get to leave them with a little life lesson with law, is what we're calling them now. So drop a little something on them before we get out of here.
Well, I want to thank you, Rob, for being there. And I'm just kind of summarizing what we just talked about right now, and just looking at your journey of becoming a teacher. And I think it's so interesting that you didn't grow up saying, I want to be a teacher. Yet here you are, a great teacher, making an impact on more teachers. And and steadily pushing the cause of teaching. And I think that for any teacher that's listening, you may not have chosen this as your first profession, but you chose it for a reason. And I think that as educators, if we remember the why we got into what we started doing and stop living for the test scores, stop living for the paycheck, and start living to make, as you said, Rob, that lifelong impact with our children, I think we'll shift in the hands of teachers alone. We will shift the face and the course of education by ourselves. So just live to make that lifelong impact and teach. All right. That's it, man. I think that's about it.
Okay.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks again, Rob, buddy, for taking the time and coming back on the podcast.
Excellent. Keep me posted, all right?
Will do.